What if I told you there's a place just 20 minutes south of San Francisco where you can get a house with an actual yard, send your kids to top-rated neighborhood schools, have the ability to park right in front of your house without circling the block or multiple blocks, and still be close enough for San Francisco date night? Might sound too good to be true, but it is legit. I'm Raziel Ungar, and I've lived in San Mateo County pretty much my whole life, except for 4 years in LA for college and 8 years in San Francisco in my 20s. So I'm speaking from personal experience when I tell you why people who make the move down here almost never go back to the city. And I'm gonna also share with you exactly why San Mateo County has become the top destination for people leaving the city, break down some of the real costs and benefits of each city on the peninsula, and share with you why out of over 300 buyers that I've helped make this move, only one has ever moved back to San Francisco. So let's dive into why the peninsula might be exactly what you've been looking for. So to see what it's like living in San Mateo County, join me every Monday at 5 p.m. for a new video. Now, don't get me wrong, I love San Francisco. It's a world-class city. I lived there for 8 years in my 20s. My sister lives in San Francisco. I love going to Crissy Field. I love going to Mama's in North Beach. I love walking around 24th Street in Noe and Chestnut Street in Union and all that. San Francisco is great, but there can come a time in your life where you're like, you know what? I'm looking for something a little bit different. And that's kind of where the peninsula comes in. It's such a natural fit and extension for what people want at a different stage in life, perhaps. So what are some of the reasons why people might choose to leave San Francisco? Well, first of all, the top of a lot of the list is going to be quality of life improvements. So it's just so relaxing being down here. It's so peaceful. You have this suburban lifestyle. You're not, kind of mentioned parking. So driving around looking for parking when I lived in North Beach and when I lived in Noe Valley, like if I saw a parking spot within a block of where I lived that was available right away, life cannot get any better than this. And if you're watching this, you kind of know exactly what I'm talking about if you live in the city. It's kind of funny, like when we bought our house down in Burlingame, then my wife was pregnant at the time, and we had this vision of parking in the garage and this and that. And I was telling her, because she didn't grow up in Burlingame like I did, I was like, look, it's gonna be fine. We don't need to park in the garage because we can park out on the street. There's 2 or 3 spots that are always empty in front of our house. We can park in front of her in the driveway. Totally no big deal. And then we had a 1-car garage, so it was pretty tight anyways. So once she was pregnant and we had a little Prius at the time, opening the door, it was so we couldn't even park in our garage. So, but it's so relaxing because parking is such not a big deal on the peninsula. And you just have plenty of places to park in the street. Obviously, you're gonna get a lot more space. So when I talk to a lot of people like you who are thinking about making the move, they always tell me at the top of their list is a home with a yard. Now that you can get at almost any price point for a single family home, whether you're looking for your first place for $1.5 or $2 or $3 million up to $5 or $6 million coming out of the city, it's not gonna be a problem to get a house with a yard. And you can definitely build an ADU on almost all properties. Check out my ADU video if you wanna learn a little bit more about how you can capture a lot more space in your backyard while being able to buy in a more expensive neighborhood with a smaller house and then add additional space a little bit more quickly and easily with an ADU. So if you're thinking about making a move down to the peninsula, give me a call and we can totally talk about what might be some of the best areas for you to consider based on what's most important for you. I also love the real estate down here compared to San Francisco. So in the city, your average lot size is going to be a whopping 3,500 square feet. Depending on where you are in the city, you could have 2 or 3 inches of space between one house and another house. At least from my perspective, that's not ideal. And if you move down to the peninsula, you're gonna be able to walk all the way around all 4 sides of your house, and it's gonna be pretty normal and nice. Down here, a small lot would be 4,500 square feet. We own one house that is about that square footage, and it's totally fine. But most lots in the peninsula are gonna be between 5,000 and 6,000 square feet, and you may or may not have an attached garage. Personally, I'm a huge fan of attached garages, but you can see a lot of homes at high price points that have detached garages. I'm just not a huge fan of homes with driveways where you have a long driveway and it just kind of takes up space that isn't ideal, but it doesn't stop people from buying these homes, and I don't discourage it, but just something to keep in mind. Now, on the peninsula, regardless of what size home you get, if it's a single-story home, you're not gonna have the amount of stairs that you have in the city. I remember living in the city, like my place we were living at the time in kind of Noe, Liberty Hill at 21st and Dolores, and I had to go up like 20 or 30 stairs just to get to our 1-bedroom condo that we were renting at the time. And it was good cardio, don't get me wrong, but moving down to the peninsula, you're just not gonna have to deal with that. At the most, you could have 3 or 4 steps to walk into your house, and there's just a lot fewer multi-story buildings to navigate. Like, you don't have old buildings here where there's no elevators if you want to buy a condo down here. It's just a lot easier. I also just love how convenient things are on the peninsula. So regardless of kind of where you move to in San Mateo County, you're going to be not that far from the city if you really want to. So if you live in South San Francisco, for example, obviously that's like a 10-minute drive. If you were to live in Burlingame with no traffic, you're looking at 22 to 25 minutes just to get up to the financial district. Again, no traffic. On a bad day from Burlingame, it could be 45 minutes to an hour, which is not the end of the world, but try to avoid that if you can. If you live down south of 92, like in San Carlos or Belmont, you're trying to get up to the city, like for a date night, anything like that, no big deal. You just want to be mindful of rush hour. And if you don't need to get back up to San Francisco for any regularity, living on the peninsula is going to give you a lot more optionality. I remember when I lived in Noe Valley with my now wife, and she was working down in the valley, and she would take a shuttle all the way down to Sunnyvale. I think she did it on Caltrain for many, many years. And so if you're watching this, maybe you've done that too. You know what it's like. So if you're like, hey, let me live on the peninsula, you're able to cut out half of that time and still get everything. When we moved down to Burlingame, I remember saying to myself, oh my God, the restaurants, they're going to be terrible. I don't want to, there's nothing good down here. We're always going to be back up at San Francisco going to Papalote or our favorite Kokari, right? There's so many good places in the city, but we actually rarely go up to the city now unless we're meeting my sister and because we want to spend time with them, because there's so many quality places that you can enjoy in the peninsula. In fact, there's a lot of hot places from San Francisco have come down here. We have Delfino, we have Blue Line Pizza, which in San Francisco called Little Star. There's just so much good food here that there's really not a need to go up to the city for that. Now, if you're watching this and you live in the city, you might be like, I don't know about that, but just take it from me living in both spots. We got it pretty good down here. All right, now let's talk about education. There are so many different options on the peninsula. Now, everyone has an opinion about schools in San Francisco. I get both sides. I have family who has gone to public elementary and public schools in San Francisco. I have family who have gone to private schools in San Francisco. So I hear both sides, right? Everyone's got an opinion on it. I can say across the board, though, the quality of the education that we have on the peninsula is very high. Sure, everyone has complaints and gripes about different schools and different programs and class sizes or classes being too crowded or things like that. But overall, we have a variety of options that you can choose from here, both public and private. Personally, I went to private elementary school, and then I went to public middle school and public high school. But there's just so many different ways that you can slice it, and I have tons of friends and clients who have done both. But the nice thing here is if you buy real estate or you rent real estate down here, wherever you live, that address is going to go to a particular school. So you kind of know before you move to that spot where your kid's going to go to school if you're going to do a public school. Now, there's no guarantee. I mean, schools can be impacted, of course, but I haven't heard of that being a recent thing for a long time. So if you are moving down here and you're watching this and you have a 4-year-old and wherever you move, that's probably going to be the school that you go to. So I definitely recommend doing research on schools in advance. Go talk to parents, join a local parent club. Like there's a Burlingame Parents Club, there's a San Mateo Parents Club, San Carlos. Like all these towns have different ways that you can get involved in the community without actually sending your kids up for school. You can go interview the principals or talk to people in a leadership position just to get a feel for what it might be like at those particular schools. All right, so another thing that I love about living on the peninsula is how walkable it is. Now, if my sister were right here, she would tell you that San Francisco is extremely walkable. She can walk a few blocks from where she lives, and there's a ton of restaurants. There's everything that she could want, within a few blocks. But I would say, yeah, but it's a little bit more like concrete jungle-ish, Like on the peninsula, we have tons of trees. Like in Burlingame, for example, we have 18,000 trees, just in a town of 30,000 people. But wherever you live on the peninsula, you're gonna have probably really good walkability to a downtown if that's important to you, while still maintaining like a suburban feel. So if you value having a lot more space, being on a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot lot or more, and having a lot of that walkability that you can get in San Francisco, you can check that box on the peninsula. And I would argue all day long that it's better from a real estate perspective what you can get on the peninsula versus in the city. If you kind of want that yard, if you want a lot more space, if you want sidewalks, like not cars zooming by with, without stop signs or traffic lights, it's really well maintained and organized down here. So I like that. When I think back living in the city compared to living down here, sometimes when I lived in the city, I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I want to drive there. I got to run this errand. I mean, sure, you can get everything delivered nowadays, but it's some things I need to drive to do. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to deal with parking and driving there and coming back. Down here, I'm popping in and out throughout the day, the weekend. I'm not stressed about any of these things. It's not like I'm popping on 101, going from Burlingame down to San Mateo, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I'm not going to do that. So it's just a lot more relaxed because I'm not getting stressed thinking about transportation and just getting around everywhere. Now, if you haven't spent a lot of time, so I do have many buyers who reach out to me and they're like, look, we have been down on the peninsula, 2 or 3 times, but we're just kind of thinking about it. So I say, look, just go spend an afternoon in downtown San Mateo. Go spend an afternoon in downtown San Carlos. Go spend an afternoon in downtown Burlingame and just walk around, talk to people. How do you like living here? Go find a cool place on Yelp that you want to go enjoy a bite to eat. Take Caltrain, just kind of get a feel for what it's like. Go to Burton Park in San Carlos, or go to a park, spend some time in Emerald Hills in Redwood City, or go for a walk in San Mateo at Sawyer Camp Trail, or go for a walk on the Bay Trail. That's a really good way to learn about the community. Oh, and about the food, we have Michelin-starred restaurants on the peninsula here. We have this new bakery, Backhouse, that started in San Mateo. They're now in Burlingame. My sister's convinced that they're going to win a James Beard Award. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. They're amazing. They even have their own mill in their bakery. How cool is that? All right, so let's talk about the weather. If you just open the weather app on your phone and you live in the city and the weather's not that great, you're going to be a little bit jealous. Okay, so when you the more south you go, all the way down to the valley, down Palo Alto and south, it's just going to get warmer. You probably already know this already, but the weather in San Francisco is totally different from what you're going to see a little bit more south. So if you're in South San Francisco, San Bruno, Daly City, it's not going to be too dissimilar from what you can experience already in San Francisco. But if you start moving a little bit more south down to Millbrae, Burlingame, San Mateo, Belmont, San Carlos, Redwood Shores, Redwood City, Foster City, all of these areas, it could easily be 10 to 15 degrees, sometimes 20 degrees warmer than it is in San Francisco. So you're gonna get way more consistent sunshine and way less fog than you will in the city. You can check out my video comparing the peninsula to the South Bay. But if you think about from a weather perspective, it's gonna be easily 10 degrees warmer in Palo Alto or San Jose even than it would in Burlingame. So it's even, like I would say, a little bit on the North Peninsula, it's a little more Mediterranean, and a little bit more south, just gonna be a little bit more hot. But year round on the peninsula, I'm rarely wearing anything more than a sweatshirt. Sometimes I'll put on a raincoat if it's raining, of course, but that's it. I can kind of wear a polo shirt pretty much year round. Now, and I'm not always wearing polo shirts, but t-shirts or whatever else, but you got the point. I did mention a little bit earlier about commuting, but from a flexibility perspective, you're just gonna get, especially with remote work being such a thing now. I had a client many years ago who owned a home in Burlingame, and he was a director at Google in the South Bay, down in Mountain View. And then Google acquired a company that he ended up kind of managing and having a leadership role in that company that was just acquired. And that team was based in San Francisco. So they didn't have to move. They could just kind of stay in Burlingame. And that's kind of the nice thing about the peninsula. It gives you a lot of optionality from a career perspective, especially if you work in tech, whether you live anywhere from Burlingame through Redwood City. It's not going to be miserable to go down south or to head up to the city. And I've had a lot of clients who tell me that's a huge reason why they chose the peninsula, because they knew that they could go in the East Bay. They could spend way less in the East Bay. They could get a nicer home, newer home, less problems, more land. Like basically everything would be better about the real estate itself out in the East Bay. But they chose the peninsula because of the career opportunities that they wanted. And so it's kind of hard to have your cake and eat it too. So if you do buy here, you will spend a huge premium because of the 9 counties in the Bay Area. We are the most expensive county, so no sugarcoating that. And with work from home, I'm seeing a ton of people that I know build home offices in their backyards with the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, which have become extremely popular in the last year since those became kind of legal statewide in California. In January 2020, I was just looking on Nextdoor yesterday, and I saw a post in Burlingame about someone saying that the ADU, they didn't like someone's ADU. Sure, there's always two sides to it, but the ADU, it's one thing that I just can't see a whole lot of negatives for. I'm a huge advocate for them if they're done responsibly and with good quality design. One of the best things I love about the peninsula is the nature that we have here. So of course in the city you have Golden Gate Park, and there's a lot of parks that you do have. So it's kind of like you got to walk there or drive to get there, unless of course you live next to Golden Gate Park already, and that's awesome. But if you value that good weather and you want to be outside, it's kind of hard to argue with the nature that we have here in the peninsula. So if you're watching this and you know you're going to be moving out of the city, obviously you're going to be taking a close look at Marin. Marin is absolutely beautiful. It's super lush. I love going for bike rides up there, and it's kind of hard to argue with Marin. But from a job perspective, there's also not as many jobs up there as they are down in the peninsula. And so if this is your second choice, but from a career choice, it's your first choice, you're just gonna have so many options for enjoying nature. Like I love going to Huddart Park in Woodside, hiking in the redwoods. It's only 20 to 30 minutes from anywhere on the peninsula. You can go down the Bay Trail super easily. You can drive out 92 and you're at Half Moon Bay State Beach and you're looking out at the Pacific Ocean, and it's gorgeous. So there's so many different ways that you can enjoy the outdoors here, and I think you would not be disappointed if you considered it. All right, let me give you an idea on what the pricing is like on the peninsula, because you might be surprised. While sure, it is expensive down here, it's not as crazy as when I talk to people moving from San Francisco as they think it might be. So we're looking at a median single family home price in San Mateo County of around $1.9 to $2 million. So that is not inexpensive, but you can start out buying a single family home, depending on where, probably about $1.3 million to $1.6 million, $1.7 million will be a starter home price. I know these are outrageous prices, but you cannot really get a single family home under $1 million. That is super hard. I have a listing right now in Daly City at the $1.1 million price point. It's about 1,600 square feet with the view of the Pacific. It's gorgeous. So that's kind of about where we're starting out. If you're looking for a condo, you can start out around $700K to $800K for say a 2-bedroom condo, but in kind of a nicer building could be maybe $800 to $1 million. You may or may not have laundry in unit, and anywhere from $900K to about $1.3 million, $1.4 million will get you a 2-bedroom condo up and down the peninsula, probably a little bit more modern, newer, good floor plan, in-unit washer dryer. That's about what you can expect. The lowest price, I did a transaction a few months ago, a 1-bedroom condo in San Mateo. My clients paid about $750,000 for that, and it was right across from the water. It was beautiful, just east of 101 there. So that's kind of about starter price range. But if you're looking for a 3-bedroom home, depending on where, you're going to be starting out in the high ones and then going up to high twos depending on where. So that's about $1 million swing depending on what town you're in and if you're going to be in a hillier area or a flatter area. So that is a huge thing that you're going to want to consider if you're coming out of the city. Do I want to live in a flatter area, kind of like I'm used to in the city maybe, where I can walk everywhere? Or am I okay being up in the hills where maybe I can get a little bit better view, I can get a little bit more privacy, I can be closer to 280, which might be valuable from a commuting standpoint, or I just kind of don't want to feel like I'm on top of my neighbors or anything. Less trick-or-treatable feel than you'll get in the hills versus the flat areas. So that is going to be a main decision point, and once you've decided that, then you can figure out, I mean, you're not going to spend less to be in the hills, but you'll just get better value, lower price per square foot for the same dollar, because you can get a lot of 2-bedroom homes in flatter areas. You just really don't see 2-bedroom homes in hillier areas. We start to see like 3 and 4 and 5 bedrooms up there. Then if you're kind of looking for a 4-bedroom home, you're kind of going to be starting in the low to mid twos, and then depending on where, that could get up to $4.5 or $5 million very quickly. At the high end, what could you get a 4-bedroom for $4 to $5 million? That's probably going to be Burlingame, maybe San Mateo Park, maybe a new house in San Carlos in a flat location like in Howard Park or the White Oaks neighborhood. You could also get a little bit better value in Redwood City in the hills, Redwood Shores, which I totally love in Foster City. A 4-bedroom home there is not going to cost more than low 3s, so kind of low 2s to low 3s with a couple exceptions. And so there's a lot of flexibility and optionality that you'll have from a pricing standpoint. But floor plan also really drives price depending on whether you're in the hills or the flats. If you have a kind of an open concept floor plan with a great room feel, a lot of people really love that, where kind of the kitchen opens into the backyard. And so that's going to be easily a 10 or 20% premium to get that better floor plan that a lot of people like. A minority of buyers I work with want to have a more traditional dining room, living room, kitchen, where they kind of have their own separate spaces, where more people want a little bit more of that flexibility on how they use the space. All right, so I want to give you an idea here specifically on median home prices for a variety of the towns on the peninsula. So you can kind of see here, if we go from least expensive to most expensive, we're going to kind of start to see South San Francisco, Daly City, San Bruno at the more entry price points. And then we're going to go all the way up to Atherton and Hillsborough, which are at the very high end of the range. And kind of in the middle of the range, we're going to see parts of San Mateo, just depending on where. San Mateo has 100,000 people and 27 different neighborhoods. So you're going to see a huge variety of price points there. We're going to take a place like Burlingame, which has one of the highest median prices in the county. Obviously, that's going to be on the pricier side. San Carlos is about 10 to 15% better value than Burlingame for arguably something that's very similar. Burlingame's gonna be a little pricier because it's closer to the city, very high tree density, but a lot of my clients who are considering one of those towns will consider the other town. And then there's Belmont, which is a lot more wooded, a lot of privacy, less flat lots, unless you're in the like kind of Homeview neighborhood in the flats or in the Hallmark area up in the hills, but fewer sidewalks, just very quiet and relaxing. So each town that we have on the peninsula is going to offer something a little bit different. If you're kind of curious for some of the flavor of each town, reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation with you about kind of what are some of the differences and strengths of each of these towns. So you might be wondering, does it make sense to move to the peninsula? Well, I can tell you, I only had one client in my career who moved from San Francisco down to the peninsula. I won't mention which town because it doesn't matter, but they lived here for about 6 months and they were living in San Francisco, kind of near the ballpark area. It might have been at the Beacon, I can't remember exactly. And they enjoyed living down here, but then they moved back up because like all our friends are here. We just kind of miss how vibrant it is in the city and all that, you know, but otherwise people who move down here, they really, really like it. So I'm not just saying from my personal experience, but across the board, this is such a world-class place to live too. Obviously San Francisco is great for many reasons, but if you're looking for more space, you're looking for top-ranked schools, you're looking for a high walkability factor, you're just looking for a friendly vibe, and you're looking for a community that's just beautiful. There's so many places to choose on the peninsula that you'd probably be really happy in. So just come down to the peninsula, spend an afternoon here, bring some friends, go brunch or go to the park or bring your dog. It's just really an amazing place to live. I'm super grateful that my parents chose to move to San Mateo County before I was born from the East Coast, and I just happen to be really lucky to grow up here, and I feel very blessed to live in this part of the world that we're in. I truly do. So if you're watching this, I wish you all the best. If there's anything I can do to support you in your journey, if you're thinking about making a move anywhere within San Mateo County, I'd love to be your Peninsula real estate resource of choice. So give me a call, shoot me a text, email, whatever it is. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about why I love living in San Mateo County, I know I talked about it here a little bit, but there's another video I did that's even more expansive. Check out that video. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.